Hello, everyone. Welcome to our usually scheduled talk within the nine-sided circle. I'm one of your
Be unusually scheduled.
Right now, it feels very unusual being 3 time zones away, I must say.
It is rough.
All right, but I'm making it through. Okay, so I am one of your 2 hosts, Nor Kyle, along with,
The other one of your 2 hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
and we are so excited for you to join us tonight, as we always are. But we have a bunch of fun people here this evening. Some new, some very familiar to us all, but all very much appreciated and welcome. And also, those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you for being here as well. So, Mashak, do you want to give a little bit of a spiel?
My turn to do the spiel again. Okay. If you're watching us on YouTube, welcome. And if you haven't done so yet, please consider hitting the subscribe button below. We would really love to have you on our subscription list. And we're running a special on subscriptions this week. You can have 2 subscriptions for the price of 1, both to us. It doesn't mean you'll be getting twice the stuff. It just means you're more special than everybody else. So, um,
I got you.
you got it?
Yep.
Yeah. So hit that subscribe button and um, hit the like button. That is as important, maybe even more important, because the likes are what get us seen more and more in YouTube's obscure algorithm. The more you like us, the more people see us. The more people see us, the more people subscribe to us. And one day we will be able to demonetize all of our videos, which we would really like to do because we do not want you spammed with idiot commercials that have nothing to do with what we're doing, or even worse than that, predators who would like you to come and take their Be a Spiritual Person for $10,000 a week course.
Yucky.
Yeah, we don't want any part of that, so we can't start demonetizing ourselves until we get to 1,000 subscribers, which we're almost to. We're over 896 or 97 subscribers the last time I checked.
Very excited about that. Yes. So, thank you for all those people who keep making this, more and more of a reality as we keep going slowly, slowly.
Oh yes, and comment on what you think about this. We would really like to know. Your comments will help make these talks better. We love your comments. We try to answer every single one. Every
And we get
chance we
a, yeah, every chance we get, and we get a lot of ideas from them as well.
yeah. And if you like our stuff and would like us to talk about a particular subject, you can mention it down below in the comments. We will take your suggestions very seriously. The only caveat is if we don't know something about what you'd like to know, we can't talk about it. But if we know something about it, we can say something. But we could easily do 2 or 3 videos on everything we don't know. So there's always that too.
Yep, we're honest folks here. So, are there any announcements we need to make? I don't believe so.
I don't think so. If you like our content, feel free to make a donation down below. We do this facet of our works entirely for free. And the only thing we do is give people an opportunity to support what we do if they feel that they can and they would like to. But we will keep our YouTube videos free to the entirety of the universe forever.
It's our hope. That's our ideal.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Pretty good spiel. Thank you. So we're going to be revisiting here every week. all week, always, just for you all. All right, so tonight we're going to be talking about flow, which is a subject that we revisit from time to time, but I think we'll find that we're coming at it from a slightly different angle this week. And we've found that it's something that a lot of people, vague sense of what flow is or what maybe they would like it to be. So we really want to just like hone in on what we mean when we use that term and what it looks like in practice and some of the foundations that are necessary before moving forward into really delving into flow. So, where should we get started?
Probably, what is flow? Noor?
What is flow? You know, it's something we probably all experience to some extent when we are just so immersed in the activity that we are participating in. It's like everything just comes together, everything just seems to meld into a beautiful exercise in perhaps creating art or writing a story or going through Tai Chi movements, things like that. It can be a moment in which everything seems to feel just right. It's almost ecstatic. What more might we say about it?
It has for some time been obscure. People don't know about it. Back in the day, uh, Sufis talked about flow all the time. They didn't use that term. They used a term that means expansion, when your state expands. Um, and they had particular ways of getting into it. And when you're out of flow, they say your state has contracted. So expansion and contraction. Um, we began to rediscover it uh, in, of all things, sports. Extreme athletes began hitting flow states in their work. We first heard about it in the runner's high. Uh, if you have run distances, it doesn't seem to work as easily, in my experience, for sprinting and such things. But if you're a distance runner, you can get into a flow state uh, that will go on for hours. Um, so from there, it went into the extreme athletes, the guys who do shit so crazy that if they make one mistake, they get killed. X Games snowboarders and skiers and extreme surfers, people who surf 40-foot waves, stuff like that would be hitting these flow states. And the thing is, if you're in a flow state, you can surf a 40-foot wave. If you're not, you can die. And so when the body is given that choice, oh my God, I'm going to die unless I can shut off this guy's monkey mind and make him attend to the moment, that happens.
So, um,
C has a comment here that's actually quite good. So,
yes, he says we have that same state in Hatha Vinyasa Yoga, in asana transition and hitting still point holding postures.
yes, under certain circumstances, and we will talk about exactly what those circumstances are. Interestingly, if you can just do a flow without even thinking about it, you probably won't go into flow doing it. Flow, vinyasa can be translated as flow. It's not exactly flow, but close enough. But when you have to push yourself a little bit harder to do a vinyasa, that's where you tend to find it. That's where the sweet spot is. But we'll get to that more later. Not too much later. Anyway, carry on, Noor.
Carrying on. Yeah. I mean, what are some circumstances in which I've experienced flow? Probably while performing.
I would imagine that that would be the case, especially when you're performing a more difficult piece.
Yeah, in like, live with an audience. It's
Hmm.
a little bit terrifying. I have to bring all of my skills to the fore and almost just let everything fall away so that I am doing what needs to be done but not thinking about it.
Yes. Yeah. The arts are a place where you can find flow where you are not liable to kill yourself, which is a nice deal. Um,
Thankfully, yeah.
I have heard you go into flow states when you were practicing a new song. When you were practicing Gole Sangya and you were practicing it a lot, every now and again I would hear that shift uh,
Yeah.
and go, ah. I'd stop what I was doing, hide behind my monitor, and just listen to you.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of like you just begin to enjoy the experience of it. You're not overthinking it or analyzing it or trying to perform it, even. You're just experiencing it as it flows through you.
Yeah, I experience it, or before the pandemic, I experience it all the time in fencing. Yeah, because I know how to get into flow, I would look for it. I would find opponents who were just a little bit better than me. Not super better than me, just like maybe that much better than me. And then I would have to push myself to match them. And if I pushed myself just right and was present enough, and there was a certain amount of risk, like if it was at a tournament where if I lost the match, I would be out of the tournament, I would hit the flow. And then they would wonder what happened because they knew that they were better than me. And so why are they losing?
Yeah. I mean, there's something about that edge, that edge of risk to it.
Yeah, risk is an important part of getting into the flow state. Even when you're doing something like hatha yoga, there is risk. You're contorting your body in weird and interesting ways. If you do it wrong, if you fall out of your breath when you're doing it, you can injure yourself. And so that adds a little bit of spice.
It's an edge of resistance a little bit. It gives you something to push against, whether it's aggressively or extremely gently. And there's something about that allows for kind of a door opening to this flow state.
So Gurdjieff used two things to get people into flow. He used his dances, which are definitely complex and pushing your edge to be able to do. And he used his what he called his super efforts.
The super efforts.
Super efforts. And people think, oh, the super efforts is what it is. But the super efforts were just a trick because one aspect of flow is second wind. So most people quit when they hit the edge of their first wind. They never push past that. And in order to find your flow states, pushing past it is a necessity. And so Mr. Gurdjieff would have people work hard physical labor like moving a rock, a giant boulder in the backyard. They have to dig it out of the ground and move it from one place to another. This requires lots and lots of effort and lots of work. And if you are a Russian intellectual, you're not used to doing that kind of work.
Nope. Gosh. I think my mom's watching football or something.
Either that or she just tried to move a giant rock, one of the two.
She can't hear. She's hard of hearing, so she doesn't realize just how, exuberant she can be.
Yeah, but she's sweet, so we allow her.
She's adorable. I love my mom.
No negativity at all.
No. So, yeah, boulders.
Yeah,
And,
boulders.
yeah. So that was certainly pushing them up against
Oh yeah, you take
their.
somebody who is a upper class 19th century Russian like nobility for the most part of one sort or another, not, court of the king, but, up there, and ask them to do hard physical labor. Most of those people never lifted a shovel in their whole damn life.
Yeah.
So it pushed them beyond their limits.
Yeah. I see you unmuted. Did you have a thought you'd like to share? Or?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. If you would like me to go back on mute, that's...
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're not.
I just, we have a. That's usually how we do it. But, Nancy usually leaves herself unmuted too. It's all good. We just want to make sure that everybody who wants to speak gets a chance.
Okay.
So, cool. Anyway, yes. So, pushing up against that edge.
Yes.
And we all have those things. If it's dance, it's learning those new moves that you've never done before, even though, you're exhausted and you're tired of doing that thing over and over again. But you just feel that drive to make sure that you land it. I'm sure David knows that feeling.
Yeah. David, that's your cue to say something.
Yeah, I definitely think the performing aspect also has a lot to do with flow. The doing a duet with somebody has a lot to do with flow.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Responding to their cues and moves and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that gets into an interesting thing we want to talk about a little bit later, which is group flow.
It's true, yeah.
So, now here's the thing that we haven't talked about before that we definitely need to talk about. One of the problems with flow is that it is incredibly addictive. It hits your four main neurotransmitters. It's got your acetylcholine going, it's got your oxytocin going, it's got your serotonin going, and it's got your dopamine going, all at once. And that is an interesting cocktail to have happening in your brain. And if you have not worked to bring yourself to a state of human adulthood, it becomes very, very dangerous and addictive for you to go into flow states. One of the things I've noticed about the extreme athletes is that they're all a bunch of big kids. They are. And This is why they keep doing more and more crazy things until they kill themselves. And within that community, killing yourself is a pretty common phenomena. You know, you try and make a jump over the Great Wall of China and you pancake into the wall instead. You only get to do that once. But another thing about flow, which is very interesting, is it lowers anxiety and it lowers risk aversion. And I see that in my fencing because I go out and, you know, I have a 2.5 pound steel bar in my hand, and I am about to try and beat this other person over the head who also has a 2.5 pound steel bar in their hand, who wants to beat me over the head. This is risky business. Being hit with being hit with a foil or an epee or a collegiate saber does not hurt that much. Being hit with a longsword or a rapier leaves bruises. And so you have to not be adverse to taking risk.
Jonathan.
Yeah. David and you, Noel, gave two examples of performing, dancing, and I guess you mean singing.
Sorry if that was not stated outright.
Yeah.
Yes, singing.
I don't see where being addicted to dancing and singing could lead to problems. The extreme sports, yes.
Have you ever seen the injuries of professional dancer accrues over time? Dude, those guys beat themselves up worse than football players. Tell me if I'm wrong, David. How's your leg, by the way?
It's getting better.
Yeah. The thing about singing, on the other hand, is I have become a little bit more risk averse over time due to vocal injuries I've experienced in the past. But there have certainly been times where I love singing so much that I sing until it hurts really bad. And you can cause permanent vocal damage that way, or you can cause damage that's bad enough that you need to get surgery, which in turn can be, remedial enough that it allows you to speak without pain, but you can't sing anymore. I mean, these are the kinds of things that we find, and we have to balance our desire to sing, whether it's for fun or for performance, with that risk that comes with not stopping when we need to stop.
So how about getting into a state of flow through just walking? Surely that is harmless and only beneficial if you can achieve it.
There's a saying in chemistry, especially in pharmaceutical chemistry, about poisoning. And the saying is, the poison is in the dosage. My friend Vince used to quote that. He's a chemist, and he used to quote that to me all the time. The same drug that can save your life at one dosage will kill you at another dosage. This is true of everything, including walking.
But you've given generally a negative connotation on the flow states.
Well,
How much is a appropriate dosage for
that
singing
will
or
check with
walking
your
or
doctor, man.
dancing or jumping off a mountain in a wingsuit?
The answer is if you want to know what your body can handle, you have to work with professionals. Or you have to learn to create flow without so much risk. But remember, I said that it is addictive, and you need to be a human adult. You need to have achieved real adulthood in order to mitigate those addictive tendencies. Right now, we're talking about the children who play extreme sports. You know, the kids who are at the X game. And you need to know that there is a downside to this. There's a dark side to flow. And God, what's the guy's name? He wrote The Rise of Superman and Stealing Fire, which are both books on flow.
I can look at it right now.
Jamie Wheel.
Yeah, okay.
Wheel, yeah. So in both of those books, he does a whole chapter on the dark side of flow. And that needs to be kept in mind. This is not for kids. This is, don't play with matches, kids. Wait till you're an adult and you know what you're doing. Which no kid ever wants to hear. So, let's say you're writing prose. You can get into a flow state. What's the downside? You write for 8 hours straight. You forget to eat, you forget to pee.
Your hand hurts. Yeah, no, I mean,
Yeah.
I've been there. I've done that.
Yeah. So, there is risk. And there's the risk of you've written this beautiful thing and you give it to somebody to read and they go, that's stupid.
Ouch.
Yeah.
But it's a type of risk. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're doing okay. In a few minutes, we're going to look at the Enneagram of the flow state because that will help see. This needs to be about what it takes to get into it, to reaccess it as we need to become masters of the flow state. And if we want to survive as humans, as a species, more of us need to be able to access this state. And we need to be able to access it in a quick and easy way that that we can move in and out of. And we need to know the risks, and we need to know how to mitigate the risks. And we need to understand the problem with the addictive nature of flow. And the most serious problem in it is that you think that the method that got you there in the first place is the only method. Jumping off at the side of a mountain in a wingsuit will definitely produce flow. And you don't have to do that. The other thing you need to understand is that flow is a spectrum. You have the jumping off the mountain in a wingsuit, heavy duty flow, flow or die. You have writing a really good essay. Not as much risk. You don't need to go as deeply into flow to do that. And you have everything in between. So flow states are a spectrum. They all have certain qualities that are beneficial to us, and they're all expansive. Is this all making sense so far?
Yeah, any questions so far? Or observations, even? How about you, Lavita?
I've experienced flow somewhat in my lifetime, but I do not have a handle on how to reliably invoke it. And I don't really know where it comes from. So I'm just listening. I'm just trying to learn more about it.
Thanks, Lavita.
Yeah. Poetry has always been a place where people can achieve flow. The first time I heard a recording of Dylan Thomas reading his own work, it was, even though I didn't have those words at the time, because this was back in college and it was literally played on a 33 and a third LP record. So there it was a little scratchy, but he was in flow as he was reading his own poetry. We see that today when we look at freestyle rappers who are just doing their thing. The best of them speak from a flow state.
It's
One of my,
almost like,
yeah,
using a wingsuit, but with your words, huh?
yes, and it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're throwing yourself out into the world, and if you make a mistake, everything falls apart.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite of them is a native rapper called Superman.
Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, he can really create the flow. And he does his beats, he does his mix, and he does his vocals, and they just merge together in such a perfect way. So you find it in poetry. There, the risk is not physical. The risk is emotional, because you can fall out of flow and your lines get screwed up, or you can be rejected by your audience because they can't feel what you're saying. Make sense? All right, let's take a look at the Enneagram of Flow. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. And here we have it.
There. Can everyone see this? Give a thumbs up if you're good. Good. Okay, great.
Good. Now, I didn't bother to put numbers on this one
I
because
wonder, is it possible to make this bigger or no?
how much bigger do you want it? It's full screen for me.
Okay. Yeah, I guess
I could make it maybe this much bigger.
that works. That helps. Yes, thank you. All right.
Okay. So I'm assuming that you guys can count from 1 to 9, or 0 to 9, which is actually what it is. And this is a generic way to understand what is required to begin to create flow states pretty much whenever you need it. So up here at the 0-9 point, you have discovering that flow exists. Either somebody's told you about it, you've experienced somebody working from a state of flow, you've accidentally hit a state of flow yourself. And so you go, I want some of that. That is your initiating shock. Point one, which is over here, is the point where you are preparing for it. It's the gathering information point. Remember, it is preparation, action, shock. Preparation, action, shock. Preparation, action, shock. So, gathering information, learning the basics of your art is your preparation point. Let's say we can take something slightly unusual. You are going to learn to braid whips. This is where you begin to learn how to do, they're called round sinnets. These are kind of braids that go around a core usually that are not particularly hard to do, but not particularly easy to do. And so you will spend time learning the basics of the art. You know, here's how to do a 12-strand round sinnet. Here's how to bring it down to an 8-strand round sinnet. Here's how to bring it down to a 6-strand round sinnet. Getting, tapering it down. Here's how you finish it. Here's how to tie a Turk's head. Here's how to do a fall knot. All of these things that are part of braiding a whip. And once you have those elements in place, you begin to practice. That moves you to 2, the action part. So you begin to practice, and it's hard. And your first couple of pieces look like crap. And you look at them and you go, "Oh, there's all of these mistakes." Once
It's
you've done
okay.
that, once
Yeah.
you've done that enough, it gets you to the first conscious shock, which is the commitment to ongoing learning. If you don't make this commitment, you go, "Oh, this is never going to work," and you toss it away and you wander off and you do something else. Maybe you learn how to pot petunias or something. But the first conscious shock is making a commitment to ongoing learning, going, "I'm going to do this. I'm going to push through." This is where you hit second wind. If you get through this shock, and what comes into this at this point is your will. If you're wondering what's coming in from the outside, this is where your will enters into it.
Yeah, so this is where you're pushing through boredom and
Yeah.
frustration and all that stuff, huh?
All that stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
If you do that, then your practice deepens. And you learn how to use important things like breath, structure, and movement. So when you are doing these plaits down your core, you're breathing a certain way, you're sitting a certain way, you're not hunched over the work like this, you're sitting up, you're focusing, and your movement is in line with your breath and your structure. And all of a sudden, you start getting better.
And it's a little exciting at that point,
It's
right?
a little exciting at that point. This is the fun point.
It's just like, oh my god, wow, it's actually working.
Then, at some point, you begin to cross the equator here. And you get to point 5. Point 5 is the point of most work. And this is you can describe this as in a lot of different ways. Confronting the other, meeting the danger in your art, or embracing your fear. So if you are learning the art of whip braiding, confronting the other is realizing that you're going to have to work really hard to bring your work up to a professional level. Anybody can do a round sennit. It takes a certain amount of mastery to make a well-made whip that you can crack and scare cattle and impress your friends.
And maybe sell on Etsy, you know.
Yeah. But to do that, that means you have to be a pro. And so you have to embrace your fear that you'll never be good enough. Nobody will ever want to buy one of my pieces. Oh no, I can't do it. And you have to still keep pushing on.
So it's hearing that inner voice that has all those
Yeah.
feelings of terror and shame and you suck at this, why did you even start, all of that.
And the inner voice is what keeps you out of flow. You have to turn that off. If you do, you get to the second conscious shock, which is to surrender your linear cognitive mind, let it shut up, and just do the work. Do the work in a state of flow. If you can do that, you enter into the flow state, into samadhi, into expansion. Ecstasis is the Greek term for it. I just threw it in there because I don't get to use my Greek very much. So. Now, when you get to the 7 point here, 7 always returns to 1. In the hero's journey, this is called the student becomes the teacher. This is where you use your ability to enter flow state to go much more deeply into the basics of your art, into the elements, beginning to put them together. But the circle continues, and you also continue around the circle. And 8 is practicing flow, refining the ability to access a state of mastery, which is what you have achieved at this point. Once you have hit point 7, you have entered into a state of mastery. And rather than working on learning the basics of it, you are now working on mastering your craft, which will take you a lifetime. Mastery isn't the end. Mastery is the beginning. And so you get here, and that brings you back full circle to the first conscious shock, but this is now living in flow, being able to access the flow state of your art at need. Does this make sense, everybody? Ask questions.
Please do, yeah, chime in. I can poke at you all.
What is the attention doing while being in the flow state?
Say again?
What is the attention doing while in the flow state? Where is it directed?
Where
How
is
is it
the attention
engaged?
going?
Where is the attention going? It is going into the act. It is going into the art. It can't go anyplace else. If your attention wanders from your braiding, you make a mistake. And then you have to go back and figure out where it is. You drop out of flow and it's terrible. So your attention has to be focused on your work.
And it would be in your fingers too.
It would be in your
Now,
fingers, it would be in your back, it would be in your shoulders, it would be in your eyes, it would be on the work though. Your attention is on your work. If you just jumped off the cliff with the wingsuit, your attention is the corridor that you're taking down the mountain, but it's also the pressures on the wings of your suit and the weight distribution of your body, so you're not too far forward, you're not too far back. Same sort of thing.
Would you say, I mean, I'm trying to think of a circumstance in which this would not be the case, but it sounds like it's often a pretty diffuse attention. You know how we talk about like wide lens
It can be a wide
attention?
lens, yeah, depending on what you're doing, but the focal point of the lens will be on the work. So you could say that you're using focused attention and broad attention at the same time, and they're
Yeah,
working in tandem.
that sounds about right to me. Yep.
Wouldn't you say there's a tendency to get too focused and to not be able to get into the flow because it's too much of a contracted state, and that the keeping some awareness of one's surroundings will prevent that happening and
No, I
make it a
wouldn't say
more
that.
expansive state? No, I'm saying, isn't that an important aspect? Isn't that kind of what Noor's saying?
Um, you don't have to keep attention to your surroundings if you are safe. If your surroundings are part of your flow, then you need to pay attention to them.
Yeah,
If
I mean,
you're
that's the difference between base jumping and weaving, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have, when I have done any of my crafts, I literally forget about everything outside of me. There's like this sphere where I am focused on what I'm doing. My attention is completely on that. Time basically dilates for me. I couldn't tell you how long I've been doing it. And if I think, oh, it's been an hour, it could have been 6 hours. I have experienced this doing beadwork. Total state of flow, um, but without paying too much attention to the outside world. Now, if I'm doing something like rock climbing, I need to pay more attention to the outside world
Okay.
because
Yeah.
um, if I don't, then I will miss the fact that, oh, there's a breeze coming up and that's going to change things for me. Or fencing. I have to have a sense of my surroundings, especially because in the style of fencing that I do, we play games. We don't just fence back and forth on a little 4 foot wide strip. We will fence on a balance beam, or we'll fence in a circle but have objects in the circle that we can run into.
That'll spice things up a little bit
Oh yeah,
because you
because
don't
you
want to
have,
trip.
yeah, you
Yeah.
have to have awareness of your environment then. So that is a bigger, wider sort of flow. And like I said, flow is a spectrum.
Then what are the emotions doing? Surely there has to be a sense of great satisfaction and pleasure
Why?
in the action,
Why?
because that would make it a more expansive experience involving the emotional aspect.
My sense when I'm doing this is that my emotions are really quiet. Very quiet. One of the things that the flow state does is it dials down the prefrontal lobes of the brain. And so our emotional content is not there as much.
Does
So
this,
in my
sorry to
experience,
interrupt.
no, the emotions get very, very quiet. The emotions are distracting.
Does this then temper the tendency for it to become an addiction because of the emotions aren't getting too passionate?
I'm not quite sure that I understand your question.
Well, it sounds like one of the things that makes a negative experience, what makes the flow state become potentially negative or dangerous, is its addictive nature.
Yes.
So if you are not, if one is doing the braiding and not feeling a great sense of pleasure and thrill in the action, then it's less likely to become addictive.
No, because the addiction doesn't come from the emotions. The addiction comes from the neurotransmitters. Dopamine is a pleasure neurotransmitter. If I hit your dopamine button, you go, ah, that's not an emotion though. It's just a feeling.
But isn't an emotion a feeling? Isn't an
No, an
emotion a
emotion is not a
sensation?
feeling.
A sensation isn't an emotion a release of some chemical that causes a
The
sensation
emotion is the story that you tell yourself about the release of that chemical.
We've talked about that in other talks too.
Yes. If I can remember where it was that we talked about it, I'll put a link to it somewhere.
Stories, maybe. Something about that.
Maybe.
I will make a note.
Make a note. One of the things about the flow state is that the monkey mind shuts up. And so while you may experience sensation, you don't tell yourself stories about those sensations. You know, I may experience a tingling in the pit of my stomach, but that doesn't mean that I'm afraid or excited. It's just a tingling in the pit of my stomach. I don't put any content on the experience of it. So, no emotion to speak of. Because your monkey mind needs to shut up. If you start talking to yourself, you fall out of flow.
I've experienced that. Like when I'm performing, if I start drifting into, wow, this is so great, I start like thinking about the experience I'm having, or either how awesome it is or how afraid I am, I fall out of what I'm doing.
Yeah. And it's the same with, say, fencing. I love to get my opponent talking to himself about what I'm doing, or herself, because we don't have any, there are no gender barriers to the style of fencing that I do. And I've had my ass kicked by some cute petite women, which definitely keeps you on your toes. But if I can get my opponent talking to himself, conjecturing on what I'm likely to do next, I've won the match. Even before our blades cross even once, I've won the match, because he will always be a beat behind me.
So if we want to maintain flow, it does take, again, that bit of maturity that says you're going to put aside that inner dialogue. And you're going to ideally practice doing that through all of this preparation and all of this kind of going through the motions, so that it's almost like it lives in your body rather than in your conscious mind, where you need to think through every step of what you're going to be doing. And then at that point, the maturity that comes with being able to present, to apply breath, to do all the things that kind of take you out of your own inner chattering, as you talked about the monkey mind before. That's what allows this flow state to become sustainable, rather than something that's just flickers and fleeting experiences from time to time.
And then there's utilization. Utilization is one of the things that keeps you in flow. And that begins to happen down here in Practice Deepens. Utilization, who here has ever done any improv? Good, David has.
Yeah.
So what is the first rule of improv, David?
Yes, and?
Exactly. Yes, and. You never cut stuff off. You have to learn to move with what is given to you. So I say to David, David, I met a horse today, and he asked me for a cigarette.
The horse was wearing a large hat.
And that hat had a cigarette sticking in the band.
It was a good thing that that cigarette wasn't lit.
Indeed. And so I said to the horse, "You have a cigarette, why do you want one?" And he said, "It's not that I want a cigarette, I want one of your cigarettes."
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but you see how that goes. We never go no, because no ends it. So it's yes and that mindset is a mindset that helps get you into flow. If I'm fencing, I don't deny what my opponent is doing. He beats my sword, disengages, and then comes around for a thrust to the high outside line. I have to go, yes, and let me put my blade in your way, just for fun.
Yeah, you can't deny what's already actually happening.
Yes.
You have to accept it as a matter of course and move with it. Respond accordingly. Mr. Keem says, it seems one requires a certain amount of mastery of the activity one is doing to be able to generate flow.
Yes. That's where 4 and 5 come into play. That's where you begin to develop your mastery. And for some things, it doesn't take very long. For some things, you're looking at a couple of years worth of practice, maybe. But think about it. How long does it take to train an Olympic level athlete? You can do it in 4 years. People have done it in 2 years. And so using that as a measuring stick, most things in order to reach a level of competency where you can enter flow is not going to take you that long, but it is going to take you some commitment. And that commitment is risk. I'm going to close out this Enneagram so we can look at each other. So,
Here we go.
the risk that it takes to make commitment is very important.
Yes, that's a big thing, right? You gotta work through any commitment phobia you might have going on in order to make that commitment.
Say more about that, Noor.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've experienced that with my teaching, whether it's as a teacher within the nine-sided circle, as we're doing here now. I've experienced it with being a teacher in terms of working with my singing students. There's a lot of, oh my God, am I ready to do this? But you have to push through that. You have to take what you know and decide that you're going to keep learning through making that commitment. And it doesn't end there. You don't have to have all the answers in the moment of making the commitment. Really, you're just committing to an ongoing process of figuring it out.
So, one element that is required for mastery of the flow state that is not usually mentioned is autonomy. If you want to be able to enter into flow state whenever you need it, you have to have a certain sense of autonomy. You have to be the one who gives yourself permission. There can't be anyone outside of you that goes, no, you can't use flow here, or yes, you must use flow here, but not there. That will kill everything. So flow needs autonomy. It also needs, for lack of a better term, meditative practices.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to that before.
Yeah.
Yep.
So tell us more about that, Noor.
Well, I mean, the meditative practices allow you to have the capacity, that sense of fortitude and groundedness that allows you to push through those things that you're afraid of, whether it's commitment, whether it's injury, whether it's failure or ridicule. How do you stay grounded in order for those things to just be challenges for you to overcome, that you feel you can overcome?
Yeah. And meditative practices develop your inner muscles. People don't have will unless they develop it. People think they have will, but they're blown around by their conditioning. Meditative practices can begin to develop your will. It can begin to develop your attention and your intention, which are also essential for flow. They can help you develop the ability to stay present for long periods of time, which is also essential for flow. You cannot get into a flow state any other place than the present moment. You can't get into a flow state 5 minutes ago. You cannot get into a flow state 2 minutes from now. You can get into a flow state exactly when it's now o'clock.
Yeah, so you can't schedule it. You just seize the moment, huh? In
Yeah.
the sense that you can't say, all right, 30 seconds, that's when my flow state's going to start.
Yeah. Now, either it starts now or it doesn't start.
Yeah, and that now may occur 30 seconds from now, but you have to choose that moment. You have to be in that moment.
Be here now, not there then.
Yeah.
The other part for flow is that you
We
need
have
to
a
have a purpose. You need to have some meaning for doing this.
Let's hold that thought. That's an important topic. I see Jonathan's unmuted though.
All right, Jonathan, lay it
And
on us.
Mustaqim
Yeah, I
as
wanted to
well.
address that.
By the way,
I,
Jonathan, I don't know if it's like a space thing between you and your mic, but it's like your S sounds are getting muffled for some reason.
yeah, I need to hook up a microphone. Time for that. I bought one already.
It's okay, yeah. I just wanted to let you know. Yeah.
But
Thank you.
All
we
right.
will nag you until you do. Because believe it or not, we want to hear what you say. It's
No, I
important.
have it already. I just was waiting for someone to say, I can't understand you properly.
There's your excuse. It's arrived. All right, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
As you were saying.
I, for many years, I've done, and I not anymore, but I used to do Ashtanga Vinyasa, flow yoga, and I was very committed to it. But this was before I understood what anything about flow or what it is or what it's supposed to achieve. And if I think back, I don't think I was ever really in a flow state while doing that yoga.
Likely not.
And it was because I was never in a meditative state while doing the yoga. I was too body oriented to the sensations and just getting into the dynamic flow of it. It was not a flow state. My mind was always still working. There was internal dialogue going on.
Mm-hmm. Part of that
But
is going to be on your teachers.
you know, I didn't have teachers. I just like
Oops.
yeah. But recently I've been doing walking meditation with the intention behind me of getting into the flow state. Now, the good thing about walking is it doesn't take 2 years to master the art of walking. But it does take all the other things you mentioned, commitment, and I need a very private forest to do the kind of walking that I like to do to get into this state. It's got to be undisturbed. It's got to be a forest where I like to walk bare feet. It's very important for me to have the sensation of the ground with my feet continuously. And that weirds people out. And I don't want to be walking constantly past people that are weirded out by me walking with bare feet.
That's okay. I'm
A
weirded
shame.
out by people who walk in really thick, rubbery shoes. So it goes both ways.
Anyway, that was what I was getting to with the state of meditation and the moving and the awareness of my surroundings and the awareness of myself and the attempts to silence the internal dialogue. I feel that I can get into the flow state.
You undoubtedly can. When you were studying, I'm assuming you did it off of videos or some such. Did anybody on the videos tell you that in order to do vinyasa properly, you had to stay within your breath and explain to you what that meant?
I can see
Yeah,
C's
yeah,
nodding. Yeah.
but they never said presence. You've got to be present to your breath. I did all the breathing at the correct intervals and all of that, but it doesn't necessarily result
Yeah.
with the correct result.
It's like it's the technique-y stuff. You're not really going to the next level of immersion. I see C's unmuted.
Yeah, I'm unmuted because I had thrown the comment into the chat.
Yeah.
Hopefully people would pick it up without me having to
That's-
unmute myself.
It's
But it
much
took
more
me.
fun to get you to talk.
I'm scared. No, it took me about 3.5 years of instruction, and this was in a room with live instructors. It took me 3.5 years to reach the flow state in vinyasa yoga. And then it took me nearly about 4 years to access the conscious point of still point in terms of holding a posture. And partly, I think this was due to the quality of the shape that I was in and how long it took for me to access that.
Yeah, but that does not seem an unreasonable amount of time to learn a skill that is that complex.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you're doing I'm assuming you were doing the traditional flows, the first series, second series, third series.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, that is sophisticated stuff. It's not like if you had just done sun salutation, it would have taken you less time to find the flow in it. But to ask your body to do all of those complex compound movements, it takes a minute.
Okay.
You're
Yeah.
probably not as slow a learner as you think you are.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And we
But,
like it
I
when
mean-
you talk.
Yes, we do. And I remember being in yoga class and you know, it's very I'm not an athlete, so I'm very much, you know, a movement beginner in a lot of ways. And that meant that this was not necessarily a flow experience for me. I was very much in that state of learning basics and committing as much as I could at the time to the learning and trying to make the most of access to my teacher. But I was still very much in the thinking mind of, okay, you do this and then you do this and I move like this. Am I doing this right? I have no idea. I better watch myself in the mirror, things like that. And it does take time to move past that. It does take a certain level of openness to move past that. Yeah. And I think, Jonathan, that's kind of what you're experiencing when you're doing your barefoot walking in the forest. And C, I think that's what you've experienced over time through your yoga experiences. So there you go, really. Thank you. Mr. Keem, I saw you unmuted earlier. Did you have a thought you wanted to share?
Yes, about the mastery things.
Yeah, please.
So one need to master the art or the things to be able to generate flow. Can that be transferred, for example, to other activity?
Yeah.
Like I can generate flow while doing walking. Can I transfer that or?
Yes, you can transfer that to, say, running very, very easily. But you can also transfer that to speaking.
How to connect?
Yeah, you can connect those up. You can go, okay, when I'm walking, I'm in this state. Let's get into this state, even if I have to walk, and then start speaking. If you have a friend, tell them that you would like to practice something that you have to speak about, and well, they listen to you as you walk. And then just let go. Scary, huh?
Okay, I'll try.
Give it a
Once you
shot.
have the sense of what flow is, you can begin to transfer it to anything that you do.
But
You don't have to be an ultimate
into,
master.
Okay.
Yeah, you just have to have a level of competency.
Mastery is a process, right? It's not really an end point.
Yeah. Okay, I think I can try that.
Good. Yeah, this is definitely process. It is not thing. It is ongoing.
Yeah, and we did a talk about mastery even recently, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
So we can link to that as well.
As we should.
So thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Keem. So who haven't we heard from? We haven't heard from Nancy, Levita, Zainab. How about you, Nancy? What are your thoughts this evening?
Well, a lot of it is about how little I go into flow. Possibly I never have. I start thinking about all kinds of things, and
Even when you're doing your calligraphy?
oh God, yes.
There you go. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
No, I mean, oh God, I'd be thinking about all kinds of things.
Yeah. So that might be
sometimes
an area
people,
you can practice.
yeah, I mean, sometimes people would talk to me as though I was, in some kind of a Zen state, and I'd be thinking, no, I was probably worrying about money. I would look focused, I guess. I did have an interesting experience with some breath work recently, where it was almost like I kept wanting to pull away, and I check in and no, I want to keep working on breathing, which is not quite flow, I think, but closer than a lot of other states.
It might actually have been flow, because remember, flow is a spectrum.
Okay.
That can be one end of the spectrum, the mini flows, the flows where you just kind of move into a nice little place for a while and be focused.
Then I check in and see, do I actually want to be focused? Well, yes.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah.
You ask the question, am I focused now?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is no, then focus.
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is yes, continue to focus.
As Mishtalk said in the beginning, yeah, it is a spectrum. It doesn't necessarily always have to be know, wingsuit, base jumping, focused, borderline ecstasy, you know?
Yeah.
More every day than that. A lot gentler, too. Thanks, Nancy.
Welcome.
You, Zainab.
So if I'm understanding right, the spectrum is how it relates to the quality and the amount of time you're in the state of flow.
To a certain extent, it reflects how deeply you need to go in. So when you're walking, you might put yourself into a mild state of flow. When you're painting, probably your flow state is going to be deeper because it requires more of you to draw or paint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I realized there's usually the skill is there, but if one falls into the state of flow, I think I've got a question here, but I'm not really sure what it is. So
Okay.
yeah,
The seed of the question, huh?
Yeah, I'll come back to that, or maybe in few days. Sometimes it takes time to. Yeah.
There is no rush.
Okay.
Thanks, Zainab. How about you, Levita?
What's coming to mind is that flow state is at the crossroads of unconscious competence and focused presence.
That's a really good way to put it.
I like that. Thank you.
That was a mic drop.
Yeah, I mean, like, why did we just talk for an hour? But seriously, though.
I got that from everybody talking because I was just listening. So it was necessary for y'all to talk for an hour.
Well,
I couldn't
great.
have said that an hour ago.
I think, yes, but I really feel like that's such a great, in seriousness, it is important for us to work through this because there's so many ways of saying the same things, and sometimes it doesn't click one way and it clicks another. But given all the context that we've built up over the past hour, I mean, this kernel will give something for people to walk away with, perhaps. And yeah, I mean, this unconscious competence only comes from having put that time in, that dedication, that commitment, that sense of moving from the basics to deeper sophistication. And it does require a bit of that meditative presence, as we discussed. Yeah, quite a bit, more than a bit.
Yeah, I just realized I haven't experienced real flow state in 2 years, but since I haven't left my house, but I just realized where I experience it is when I'm driving.
Yeah, that's a place that you can experience it.
Yeah, like I love to drive, and I'm by the book driver, so I'm checking mirrors and doing a 360 and everything. And then depending on how far I'm going, all of a sudden it's like I'm surfing a wave and I'm present, but I'm not thinking about every little thing I'm doing. And then, depending on how deep it is, well, I'm here, in one piece without
Hooray! A very,
So,
very good thing. Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Another everyday instance of a potential opportunity for flow state. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, for those of you who didn't get the reference to unconscious competence, they say there are 4 stages to learning. The first one is unconscious incompetence. You don't know, and you don't even know that you don't know. Then you start learning. The second level is conscious incompetence. You are experiencing the fact that you don't know, and you're working on it.
You know you don't know.
Yes, which is a very high state of being, actually. Then you get to the point of conscious competence. You can do it, but you have to think about it. You have to work at it. And then eventually you get to the state of unconscious competence. You know it, like driving. People drive from unconscious competence. You can't think your way through driving. But we have just discovered, thanks to Levita, that there is a fifth state, which is the cross between unconscious competence and focused presence.
Yep.
And that's like,
You're not just checked out doing
yeah,
a decent job. You're in it and doing a decent job.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we have just found the fifth state of consciousness.
There you go.
Thank you, Levita.
Yay. Oh, yes. Wonderful. All right. Great. So Nancy responds to that by saying, John Lilly said that driving was American yoga. And Nancy totally agrees. And there's something to be said about that, right? It is potentially, as we have discussed, a meditative experience. Yes. All right, we'll see what we can do about that. See who asks if we can outline all of that in text in the forum. Sure. Nancy says again, Elon Musk realized recently that you can't have autonomous cars without computers with general intelligence.
Sigh. I have a very good friend and student who works at Tesla in the autonomous section, and
It's a wild ride over
it's
there.
a wild ride over there. But he's not wrong, but he's not near close to the answer to the problem. What does general intelligence need? Y'all are intelligent. Do you notice that you have an entire suite of sensory experience to be intelligent about? You can hear, you can see, you can feel, you can taste, you can smell, you can tell where the center of the earth is. You have all of these experiences which inform your intelligence.
The embodied stuff, yeah.
Yeah, the embodied stuff. You can't be intelligent without a body. Your body is the interface between you and existence. And Musk's big mistake is he thinks that that interface can be very, very limited. And if you want to have autonomous cars that don't crash, I don't think it can be. But we digress.
Yep. So, yes, Levita, I see you're unmuted. Did you have a thought?
The general intelligence for a car to be able to drive without a driver would probably need to have the ability to anticipate what the other cars around it are going to do.
Yes.
When we drive sometimes, I actually look at the road behind me sometimes, not a ton, but like when you're scanning, you're like left, middle, right. And in the rear view, sometimes you will see a car back here acting erratically and driving really fast. Like you can see it's really catching up on you. And then you know you need to slow down and be prepared for who knows what. And that's something that I don't know that self-driving cars can do yet.
Yeah.
To be able to go this, because we've all done it, like, I don't know why, but that car, something's going to happen. And then the car goes from the left lane to the right lane without warning. But something in the back of your brain, your hindbrain, lizard brain said, something's not right there. And I don't know if we can program computers with that sense.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that doesn't take human level intelligence, right? As you mentioned lizards. Lizards do that all the time. Flies do that.
Yeah, try killing one.
Yeah. So it's tricky.
Yeah, because just because you know what you want, I'm learning this while I'm learning music. Just because you know what you want to do doesn't mean you have the tools to get from there to here.
Yes. So folks, I think that we have beat the snot out of this subject. It's laying on the ground, bruised and battered. And
Let's be merciful, yeah?
let's be merciful, yes. Does anybody have any last thoughts?
Nope, I don't think so.
Yep, I have switched to Brady Bunch mode.
Awesome.
So
All right.
we can wave goodbye and say goodbye to
Yay!
everybody. And thank you for being here. And we hope to see you all next week.
Yes, see you next week. Take care.